All right. Good afternoon. Good morning from wherever you are. Thanks for everyone that's joining us for this space this afternoon. Ken's going to be the one asking the questions primarily, but I thought I'd get us started off since I posted the space, and I'll turn it over to Ken. For anyone that's listening now or listening afterward, hopefully you'll get a lot of value out of this conversation. I'm glad to be able to share my story with Ken and support his research. And I know he'll talk about that as well. Just to start off with, my name is Christopher Lynn, the systems dad. I live in Southwest Missouri and have started sharing a little bit about how simple systems can help dads reduce burnout or eliminate burnout and be able to lead at home and lead at work. This is not just something that's academic for me. This is something that I had to figure out twice through surviving burnout. So I'm hoping to share my experience with you all so that you don't have to go through it. And then with me is Ken, technically my co-host, but I'll be on the hot seat answering questions from him. So Ken,
Hey, good morning. My name is Ken. I'm brand new to this kind of stuff, but I'm similar to you. I've survived some rough seasons and decided that it was time to do something about it. So last year, I was laid off from my tech job. I was a software engineering manager and I got laid off. I have a family of six kids, so it was really scary time for us to not have an income. And 1,000 job applications. 4 months later, I finally found a job and decided that if this ever happens to me again, I need to have a framework. I need to have a system for managing that busy season. So that's kind of what started off the Monolithic Man idea. And then the before I jump into the research questions, I'm going to go ahead and go through the actual thesis itself. The thesis statement, the main thesis statement, is that ambition will fracture your family unless it's tempered by mechanisms that protect the standard. And there's a couple terms there that are important. The fracture is just the structural failure where career success erodes your home or your integrity. That's just not something that we can allow as strong men. The standard is the non-negotiable baseline that the family can always rely on. They need something that they can rely on from us that's just the standard, the baseline of who we are, what we're going to be doing. And that's a little bit different for everybody, but you still need to define what that is for you. I've struggled with this idea of work life balance in the past. The idea that we can find these perfect order and balance to everything that we're doing. So I really like the word sustainability a bit better, and that I think goes to burnout too. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that. And then integrated strength. It's power and presence that's aligned across your career, home, and community, and that's done through mechanisms, your repeatable systems and rules that protect the standard. And then this last concept is what I was talking about with my layoff is the idea of seasons, surges of work intensity, or something happens that changes your world. The idea is that we need to have a family agreement and a defined exit. It's really hard to time box a layoff. I tried. I was like, I'm going to have a job in 3 months, and I did. But I did have a defined exit, which was finding a job, and everything I was doing was putting effort into that. Even if it did fracture my family a little bit during that time, it was a season that we would be homeless. So that's a lot worse off than not being able to be at a few game nights and stuff like that. So that's the terms. That's the thesis of the Monolithic Man. I want to kick it over to you, Chris, with my first question, which is how does this fit into your life?
appreciate that. I'm really excited that you have defined that you have a framework and you have a concept because there's so much in what you have said and what you're posting about that absolutely resonates with me. One of the things that has struck me over time has been that challenge between being ambitious and then also being present at home. So having the acknowledgement to say, "Hey, it's okay to be ambitious. God made us to do great things, but also realize, hey, that is not at the sacrifice, at least long term. And I know that your thesis is around this. That is not at
Hmm.
the sacrifice of just putting our family behind. For me, I think for a lot of creators, hopefully that what they're sharing, their story is personal. For me, the personal part of my story is that I had a dad that worked hard to
Hmm.
provide for us. He was a full time career firefighter, always had a couple side jobs. We would see him coming back from the station at 7 in the morning, getting ready to go to the next job at 8 in the morning, and then work till 5, see him for dinner, you go to bed real quick, and then the cycle would repeat. And there's a lot of great ways that my dad showed up, but there were a lot of times that he wasn't able to keep that work and life balanced, or what I talk about typically is work life integration. So for me, what that entails is trying to build and design a life that has that. You mentioned seasons, and I think that really resonates for me as well. There are seasons where we have to turn it up. Like you said, you
Yeah.
can't let your family go homeless. I think for my dad, it was, hey, I got to provide a stable income and I got to make sure that we're well taken care of. And again, We were absolutely solid family. We weren't without want. We didn't get everything we thought we needed, but we got everything we needed, and we were well
Yeah.
taken care of. So, yeah, being someone that likes to do big, bold initiatives, that concept of making sure that we root it with our standard, our baseline, showing up for our family. So you asked about what that looks like or how that resonates with me. For me, the standard is dinner with my kids. The
Mhm.
standard is I'm not going to have prolonged seasons where I say, well, I'm too busy to do this activity, or I'm too busy to just spend part of a Saturday hanging out with you because I treasure you. I want to spend time with you. That's more important than many other things in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's, really what this first question is to confirm that the Monolithic Man thesis is on track, that it's not missing the mark, in a big way, and it sounds like generally the idea does fit with sort of how you're doing things and aligning your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I love that, and I want to continue to support you in your message as you get it out because having a framework like this, there's so much of this that checks so many boxes with what I try to counsel men and people that I help coach and
Yeah.
say these are things that you have to have in order to avoid burnout.
Right. And that's a good lead into the next question, which, I had my first Monolithic Man interview yesterday. I'm super excited. It's a lot of work to edit that. The good news is that Riverside FM, the shameless plug here, they don't give me any money, but
Mhm.
they are amazing. And this question I think is gonna be my favorite in the research because it just gives us a tactical what you can actually do. What tools, what repeatable systems or rules do you use to protect the baseline that the family can always rely on?
I'll take that from a few different angles.
Yeah,
So part
please
of
do.
part of being a systems dad or a systems guy, I'm full time in the technology space as well. I'm not an IT or a software engineer. I'm actually a program manager by trade and in the project management office. But part of that is having things that I can rely on and almost like operating procedures. And for us, we do the Christian practice or the ancient Jewish practice of Sabbath.
Mhm.
And we do that pretty strictly. That's one of our ways to build margin in our home is to spend from Saturday evening to Sunday evening. We're not perfect. And this is not a call to anyone listening to this or seeing this research later to say, well, if I only do a few hours in that time frame, I'm an abject failure. No, no. If you're doing anything, and again, as someone who used to do zero of this, working all the time, pushing the limits, just barging through. Sabbath or having a season where, like you said, you put away the phones, you connect with the family, you put away the phones, you rest, you just rest, take a nap, just rest, read something good, like literature off of social media. That's probably taboo, and X will censor me for saying that. But stop doom scrolling for a second and read something deep and rich that's going to improve you, or just something that you enjoy. A lot of that for me was influenced by with our church doing a study through Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer,
Mm, very
and
cool.
it's spiritual discipline. If you're familiar with Richard Foster's spiritual disciplines book, Comer is kind of taken a different approach for more like a millennial Gen Z audience. I described Foster's approach as a little bit more like two by four between the eyes, which is
Yeah,
great because if you're stubborn, I mentioned I'm from Missouri. We're called the Show Me State. We can be pretty stubborn. It's a good approach, but Comer's approach is more an invitation to growth and practicing these rhythms. So my wife and I were really struck by when we went through the Sabbath practice and studied that a little bit deeper, really struck by that concept and say, wow, we really need to take some time to build some margin and not just assume it's going to show up. I think part of being, from what I could tell from the thesis of the monolithic man, part of it is being intentional. You can't just wait for things to show up. You have to design it. You have to make a system and you have to design it. So that's one of our
yeah,
systems for margin, if you will. Another kind of along that same thread as far as systems or protocols for margin for us is to look at calendars and designate what I borrowed from one of my very best friends. So, giving him the credit, but he's not here on X. Otherwise, I'd tag him and say follow him. But he has a routine that he calls a no-go day, and
mm,
sometimes that's a timeout to say, "Wait a minute, we're gonna make sure that we're prepared to not go and run a bunch of errands, or we're not gonna to run around." And this is outside of Sabbath even. I mean, this is just a rhythm that his family does, and then we've adopted as well, where we by the rhythm of our calendar and the amount of busyness that we have, we'll just call timeout and say, "Timeout, no-go day. We're not let's make sure we're prepared to stay in. that we're not going to go and run around and seek more activity. That is an interesting system to implement. I've got a teenage girl and a preteen girl. They've got plenty of friends, plenty of neighbor friends. And so holding that line when we need to and say, hey, we're just doing some family time. We're just hanging out and this is some time for us, I think is super important. And it brings a depth and a richness to those relationships rather than just kind of playing it by ear. Being a tools and apps guy, so I've got some of those that I use as well. One of the things that I like to tell men that I coach is the simplest system is the best. It's tempting to say I need this really elaborate, complicated setup to do everything I want, and I'm going to do that, and that'll fix all my problems. And I run the counter and say, no, the one that works is the one that you need. Later
Mhm.
on, you have need for that more complicated tool or the one that you feel like will make you successful, then there's plenty of time to upgrade to that. So just a
Yeah.
quick story on coordinating with my wife, who is decidedly not technical. I had tried Trello, I had tried TickTick, I had tried Microsoft To Do, a Microsoft subscription, and eventually came down to where we both have Apple phones. I just use reminders. She'll get a
Yeah.
notification
Something
and then
simple.
she'll see it. She's using her
Yep.
phone. And so, again, just an example of the simplest system is the one that works. We reliably, and now this makes my system's heart beat really fast when she says this. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to add that to Apple reminders. So it's on the grocery list for you when you run to the grocery store, and I'll make sure it syncs. I'm like, this is amazing.
It's also sacrilege in the tech world to use something so simple.
I know,
So
'cause it's
that's
like,
great.
"No, you need
I
the
love it.
yeah, you need this really complicated operating dashboard." And said,
Yeah.
not really. I mean, you need something that's gonna keep things moving and flowing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we used a few apps around the home to try to um, keep things moving, but our technology is more about and again, this is what I encourage teams, whether it's at work or doing, the side work I'm doing with systems, is the best place to start is to make sure you got good communication. So, on that route, like communication standards are things that we do. The Bible tells us to not let the sun set on our anger. So I
Mhm.
think that's a good rule of thumb for men who are trying to be the monolithic man to say you shouldn't do this at work. Let the day end with conflict. But you definitely don't want that to happen in your marriage or with your children. Try to do everything you can to resolve conflict to make sure at the very least to say, okay, I'm settled enough for tonight, but we'll have the discussion tomorrow, or we'll have more of the full discussion tomorrow, and we'll fix this tomorrow. We're both tired, what have you.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good system is just making sure there's strong communication backstops. There's also the reaffirmations like, hey, we're on team family, so like my family name, actual last name is Lynn. It's not my middle name, it's my last name. And we say we're team Lynn around here, or we're doing things for the team. And that's just a good reminder to say we're all about the same objectives. We might have different approaches or different opinions to those objectives, or we may have different feelings based on what we're dealing with. One of the things that I put out, I have a weekly newsletter that I put out is just very short tactical tips. It's on my X if you want to subscribe to it. But a couple weeks ago, I did something called the HALT protocol, which is the questions to ask yourself if you're in Discord. And I'll literally say the word HALT. And now we know, the family knows because we've built it into our routine to say, okay, I need to ask myself, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? I'm tired. And it would be
Mm.
tempting to say, oh, well, of course, I've got all this figured out. I never have to use anything like that because we're all trained. Ken, I literally did this an hour ago.
Yeah.
At the grocery store, FaceTiming with the kids, like, hey, we're going to grab some things to make meals and hearing them fight, like, halt.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're
Yeah.
hungry. And it's like, we're working on
Yep.
that. It's okay. You're angry and
That's
probably because you're hungry. We got it. And
yes.
so
So many times with our kids, it's like, "Have you eaten yet? We need to let's stop where we are right now and get some food."
I'm trying to remember who posted this, but they were sharing the story of Elijah resting under the tree and being nourished by the angel.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and it said, never forget the power of a sandwich and a good nap.
Yeah. So true.
Sometimes it's just those basic needs that you have to address. So I think having a system where you
Yeah.
just scan and say, is this really what it appears? Where it's like, oh no, there's a functional conflict and it's never ending, or it's like, yeah, you just need a sandwich
Yep.
and you'll be
Yep.
fine. And they are.
That's a
They're
good
upstairs
point.
right now and they're fine. They're playing with the neighbor kid and life's good. You wouldn't have known that an hour
Yeah.
ago, but life is good.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, solve things at the lowest level. That's kind of a basic concept of leadership is figure out the lowest level you can solve the problem, don't overcomplicate things. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Now, I realized that I kind of missed. You had introduced yourself, but I kind of missed the first question where I really wanted to go into you to go into some of your history and your family life, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I did want to ask, with the mechanisms, how do you handle one on one time with your kids? You have two kids, is what I heard.
That's right. Yeah, I have 2 daughters.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So I have 6. We have 5 girls, 1 boy. And, so for me, and it was interesting talking with Jason yesterday, similar issue where he has 1 girl. And so we were talking about how different it looks for men. Some men, it looks a little different because you have more kids, and some you have a little bit less, but the things you do don't really change, just the frequency or the schedule might change. So, considering that, like, that men will have different size families, what do you think are some mechanisms to making sure you're present in each kid's life?
Yeah. So I think again, it comes down to intentionality and then presence. So it's tempting because the years are long and the days are short. It's tempting to just stack a bunch of days and take it for granted that your kids are around. They want to be around you. They want to spend time with you, especially when your children are young. They need you to be around, and they desire you a lot because they haven't built as much independence and network, especially with friends outside the home. I'm living through this transition because, as I mentioned, I've got a teenager and a preteen where they're becoming a lot more independent and
Mhm.
becoming more interested in their friends. And so for me, before it was making sure that when they did ask me for something or I was around, that I didn't have a device in my face and that I was available to them, and then set the boundary. I work from home primarily, and so setting the
Mhm.
boundary of a home office with some mechanisms there. One of the things I used to do, especially at the beginning of COVID, was that I had a sign that I flipped on whether I was on a call or whether I could have them come in. And again, I know this doesn't work for every man and every setup and their work setup, but I kind of had the rule or the setup like, hey, I want to not only have intentional moments with you, but I want if you're around and I'm not already into something or not focused or on a call, I want you to feel okay just kind of wandering in, hang out with
Yeah.
me. Again, I mentioned my dad's experience or my experience with my dad, and in some ways have gone the other way to say, no, it's worth it to me. If you've got something on your mind, it's 2 minutes. You come in and talk to me for a couple minutes and then bounce out. That gives me a lot of joy, and I think them as well. It gives them a very small investment in their love tank. It just does a little bit to fill them up, and then as we connect beyond those more in smaller fleeting moments, I will flex my schedule to help with the drop off or pickup from school or activities, and so I'll get some one-on-one time during those moments as well. I try to be very intentional about, we don't have the radio on, we don't have anything going. It's just the two of us talking. Typically, what either daughter, whichever one I have at the time.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I think.
jump in right there
Yeah, go
really
ahead.
quick. That idea of what you're talking about, I'm calling that stacking in the framework, where you
Okay.
take 2 activities and you combine them. We were talking in my interview so far, talking about different activities. For example, ours is church. We'll be at church all day Sunday as a family,
Yeah,
and it's fun because we're just volunteering for the youth program and hanging out with other kids, but it's a lot of fun. So we're combining fun, faith, family time all at one point. And so I think that as busy dads, you kind of do have to stack those activities. Like
I
you're
agree.
helping your family there. You're taking a break from work. It is the same time you would maybe normally be at work, but you're taking a break to go pick them up and have some intentional one-on-one time. That's
Right, yeah, you're gonna take the break anyway, so you might as well use it
yeah.
to repurpose it for doing something other than doom scrolling. It sounds like that I'm
Yep.
anti-scrolling on Twitter. Honestly have spent way too much time scrolling on social media. These are yeah,
Yeah.
Twitter specifically, right? But yeah, I love that idea, and I did mention it's been a few weeks now, but I did mention that idea of stacking, so I really resonate with that as well. I think, like you said, as busy dads, leaders, etcetera, we're constantly switching contexts. I mean, it's helpful when we don't have to, when we have some focus opportunities, and those come. But to the extent we don't, it's riding the wave and finding, like you said, ways to stack what we're doing. Getting several wins all at once, I think, is important. The other thing I
Yeah.
found in myself over time is not. This is a phrase I think before the last couple of months where I've been challenged to really share more of myself, especially online. Would have been embarrassing to say, but one of the things, and I'll actually type this out on my task list. This is how nerdy I am. I'll type out, "Relax, this is going to be fun." And
Yeah.
instead of, feeling like every interruption, I lived a lot of life, say every interruption is a distraction. I wanna be in focused productivity mode, deep
Mm.
work, taking Cal Newport's advice to the extreme. And when I started to look at that and say, "No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying be
Yeah.
focused to create, but you're doing the focus why? Well, so you can cut off at a certain time and go be with your family and be focused
Right.
on them." You know?
Yeah.
But whenever I took that as not a fragility to an anti-fragile mindset and really saying, "No, no, no, they're part of the deal. They're part of my break,
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
and they're part of time that I get to cultivate with them." That made it so much more freeing and gave me the opportunity to say something like, "Relax, relax. It's going to be fun, but do the adventure and do what they're wanting to do, even if it wasn't completely on my plan." Because I find that it's just building memories. That's the other thing we say in our family is we're actually my wife put in her vows to me and said, "I commit to make memories," and then
Mm.
that reframes a lot of the stresses and troubles and things that you just naturally have, being in a husband wife relationship, dealing with things together, living life together. It just is such a good reframe that I obviously needed. We're making memories. We had on our wedding anniversary last month, our car battery on our primary vehicle went out. Thankfully under warranty, but she was sitting at school parking lot, went out, drove to try to jump her. She was able to get started, took her to the auto shop that we had bought it out, no big deal, big swap, whatever. That's the kind of stuff that would have, pre-marriage for sure, but even pre-resiliency, that's the kind of stuff that rattled me. And then, on my anniversary night, would have just had the worst night ever. It was like, I can't believe that happened. This is the worst thing. I can't believe that happened.
Yeah.
And the reframe was, it happened, but it's funny. I
Yeah.
made a joke with her. I said, "Hey, did you know," it was our 14th wedding anniversary. I said, "Did you know that the traditional gift for our 14th wedding anniversary is a car battery?" I
That's
said, "I totally
hilarious.
planned this. I mean, this was just part of it. We're gonna have a great dinner tonight, and you got a new car battery. I mean, aren't you excited?"
Yeah.
And, she just played along like, "Yeah, it's even a platinum car battery."
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good one.
"Hold it,
Couldn't have
sweetheart."
afforded 10 years ago.
Oh,
That's excellent. Yeah, good stuff. All right. So on the idea of mechanisms, before we move on, I just wanted to
yeah.
make sure you felt like you've covered all the big mechanisms, all the big things, systems you use in your life to put your family first. Is there anything else you want to go over before we move on?
I can't think of
So you've already introduced yourself, but if you would tell us a little bit about your career trajectory, whatever you're comfortable sharing about with your family. I know that a lot of the guys that I've been talked to about an interview are like, my family's off limits. We're not really talking about who they are, but that's totally fine. And of course, give your current project another plug.
sure, absolutely. I Yeah, we'll just start at the top. I'll go back even to just ambition and kind of where I think I've found myself a little bit, both full time work and then, like you said, the current project and the current thing that I'm working on and promoting online. I think even from an early age, I've always had the heart of a teacher. My mom said that when I was growing up, I uh, would have my own little classroom and pretend to be a teacher. I didn't think that was where I would land at different times. I wanted to be a lawyer. Ben Stein talked me out of that, not personally. I was at an event. I asked him a question. He'd said, "If you want to change the world, don't be a lawyer." I took that
That's
advice
hilarious.
seriously and moved on from that. Studied finance, thought I'm going to be in banking. This is what I need to apply my talents to. Still enjoy that. I work for a fintech full time. So there's opportunity to be in that world and combine technology and software, which I really love. But once I graduated, I did get the opportunity to scratch the teacher itch, at least from a formal perspective. Worked at the university that I graduated from as an academic advisor, and then I had an opportunity to teach an intro computing class and an intro business communication class for several years in the evening. That was a really good time, and I'm spending some time these days connecting with some of my former students, primarily on LinkedIn. That's how I'm mostly connected to them, but connecting with them, kind of seeing how their life's going, what we can help them to grow and succeed, and et cetera. So that was a really rich season of my life. I shared a little bit of this on Zach Goodman's podcast, which is excellent and fantastic,
Yeah.
Zach. But my interview with him, I shared a little bit more about this season that I'm going to share about in brief. While I was working at the university, and right after my wife and I had gotten married, things were going well at work. I had won a national award for advising. I was leading and growing a master's of business program to try to grow our recruitment efforts and our advisement efforts and make sure that we had a solid setup for the about 450 students that we had. We had a large international population. My wife and I are both heavily invested in international ministry, and it's one of our greatest blessings to have international students in our home. So I had
Very
plenty of
cool.
opportunities and outlets for that during that time. But in the midst of us getting married, all of that activity, my father in law had passed away. He had been ill for a while, so it wasn't completely a surprise, but certainly a shock. And in the midst of that, my employer had said that I had overextended my time off, a lot of bereavement leave, and that started me on a path to ultimately be demoted back down to where I was entry level and then have to find a path out. I looked at different academic jobs without having a PhD, which I don't. Without having a PhD, I wasn't able to sustain that. So I jumped into the fintech world, been there for the last almost 12 years. I really enjoy, again, what I do, love working with people internally to help them with internal programs and projects. And then you mentioned this side project. For me, it is an opportunity for me to show and somewhat prove to myself that I can sharpen a lot of my skills that I need for work, but for a broader audience. I think I've got ideas around system management and ideas around how you can avoid running yourself into the ground. I've got some of those ideas that I think I can share and leverage. So my real mission, if you will, overarching is it is that education piece. It's educating guys on how to avoid what I went through, whether intentionally or unintentionally, help them avoid that path, or if they find themselves in that path, to say, hey, I think many times you alluded to it with your own story, the story that we have is the guy that we wish would have shown up for us during that season in our low point, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to live is, man, I wish I'd had someone that came into my life and said, it seems really bad now. See your way through. It's going to be all right. You're going to pivot and you're going to change. One of my biggest fears was I'll lose all these opportunities to educate. I'll lose all these opportunities to be with internationals. I'll lose all these opportunities because this career season is over. And what I found, Ken, is we've got plenty of opportunities to be with international students. I'm on the board of a campus ministry that serves international students and has them involved in programming and leadership. So I get to connect with students who are future leaders, whether they stay here or they go back to their home country. Education, yeah. You mentioned being plugged in at church. We get opportunities to educate at church,
Yeah.
opportunities to work with students. Again, some of what I'm doing to share online, I consider education. The Lord has just really rewarded me with more opportunities than what I could ever think, and it's a blessing to just ride out and see what he has for us and where he wants to lead us. Like he's got intentional course for us. And part of our journey is to submit everything we have, submit everything that we are to him and say, Lord, I've got ideas, I got plans, I got ambitions, I got things I want to do. Not wrong. The Bible is full of men who have said, I've got plans, I've got ambitions, I've got dreams. The right thing to do with that is to say, I'm going to submit this unto the Lord and he will sustain me. One of the things, kind of going back to that Sabbath concept, one of the things that we read from John Mark Comer that really stuck with me is that doing a Sabbath is a forced admission that you are not the Lord of the universe and God can sustain the entire universe without you trying to hold it up. And that hit me. That hit me hard because that's exactly what I was doing. I was trying to
Yeah.
hold up the universe and sustain it. It's like, oh, I have all these systems, and not that they're bad, but I have everything arranged in my life in such a way that I don't have to take time off. I'm the one keeping everything together. I'm the glue. And no, I'm not. I know better than this. I've walked with
Yeah.
Jesus long enough to know that that is absolutely not true.
Right.
The sustainer, he's the one that holds things together. Uh, yeah, I mean, that's my career journey. So again, the project right now, systems dad on X. I do have a professional website as well, ChristopherLynnSystems.com. There's a link in my bio. You can click through on that. But really, what I'm seeking out are guys that, like I said, need some clarity, need some guidance, need something to get some perspective with what they're struggling with. I'm finding that I'm talking to a lot of founders or a lot of new initiative people, which is I'm glad I'm getting to talk to you, Ken, because I see this as something you've been brewing, and then you're starting to light this on fire. So I'm excited to follow your journey as all these interviews start to transpire and come out. But I'm all about and this is what I do at work full time. I'm all about activating for folks. Like, hey, instead of deferring any longer, what is that next action we can take to get you launched, or at least get you ahead to your dream? That's honestly way more exciting than if my name ever becomes popular or there's a big brand around me. If I can have a legacy to pump up other guys and help them lead successfully and do their ambitions successfully, that's a huge win for me.
Very cool. Did you want to share, and again, only what you're comfortable with, a little bit about your family, your marriage, your
Yeah.
kids? Yeah, if you would walk us through a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought me back. I totally neglected that, but
No
this is
problem.
why it's a conversation.
Yep.
So family, my wife, Trina and I, we've been married for 14 years. That we got that Carter battery for. And so 15 here in 2026 at the end of the year. We have two children. I won't give their names for online privacy reasons. But
Yeah. No
I've got
problem
a
at all.
teenage daughter and a preteen daughter. Absolutely just fun loving. My oldest, she looks like me and acts like her mama. And then it's a reverse for my other kid. So it's always a fun shell shock for people meeting us. Say, wait a minute, this one's their personalities are swapped. And I said, no, God just made them the way they are, and
Just
designed
mixing
them the way
DNA up,
they
you
are.
know?
Yeah. My youngest is almost a carbon copy of what my wife looked like at her age, and my mother in law will say her personality is so different than yours when you were at that age. It's like, yeah, because and she has some additional influence by way of her father.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so and as far as our family, kind of our family mission, ambition, if you will, we love to make memories together, whether they're intentional or unintentional. We just embrace the ride. Love connecting with our church. Love connecting with international students, like I mentioned earlier. Love connecting with our neighbors. We've got a great neighborhood, and so a lot of our neighbors are neighbor friends. We call them neighbor family. We just kind of have them in an. I mentioned as we're doing this right now, we've got a neighbor kid upstairs just hanging out, eating from our fridge. It's cool. We love it. It's a good life.
It's good to be that
Uh,
house. Yeah, where everybody
yeah,
comes over.
and our neighbors are the same. Our kids will go, and it feels a lot like how I grew up, and I think it's exciting to have the prospect that you've got more community than you do houses and people that live adjacent to each other. I think in our society, that's too easy to do. We open the garage door, we shut the garage door. There's nothing betwixt or between. I think there's an opportunity for us as men to be intentional about that and build those kinds of connections so that there's a little bit more than just, like I said, having houses and people that are adjacent to each other.
Yeah.
Our family is mostly about that. We love to have great experiences. We love to experience life together. I think what we treasure most is that we get to do things together. As you may have inferred from a lot of my responses, we're big on quality time, but we're big. I think we would say we're even more about the quantity time. We're always making
Yeah.
little deposits in each other's accounts, if you will,
Yeah.
where we're just seeing each other, hanging with each other, spending time with each other, and I really treasure that more than working 80 hours a week and then coming and trying to squeeze out some stuff. I'd rather have the work life integration to where say, "Hey, I'm going to take a break and let's, sit down on the couch for a second and just talk with each other, and then I'm going to get back to work." And, the drill.
That's huge. Yeah, before I got laid off, I was working from home as a software engineering manager, and I think I worked from home for about 7 years. So our kids range in age from 9 months to 16, and so it was just really great to be able to step out, take a break, grab a cup of coffee, say hi to everybody, and go back to work. And now we're in a season where I work away from home, which is just part of it, and
Sure.
I'm grateful there's a purpose, there's a reason why this is happening, and, it's so funny because at first I was a little bitter about it. Human emotions are hard to control even if we know that there's a greater purpose for it. But, now that I've been there and I've seen the opportunities and seen the growth that I've gone through, I don't think the Monolithic Man would have come about if I was just back in that same comfortable work from home place that I was before. So, yeah, it's, sometimes your life changes, but I deeply remember or I deeply appreciated those moments of being able to just walk out and give a kid a high five a couple times a day is just great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So yeah, for the last research question, obviously I'm a little out of order here, but pardon me, I am sick. You can probably hear it in my voice. Very sick today, and also new to this, so I'm learning as I go. I appreciate you learning with me.
I
Yeah, the
w
last.
I
Go
would
ahead.
not have known either of those things by the way you've conducted
Okay.
this. I mean, I know you're new because you've admitted it,
Yeah.
but no, you're doing great.
It's
This is
funny. I
exciting.
watched. I was started editing the interview from yesterday, which was the first one, And I was like, "Man, I'm boring. I gotta move and talk a little bit more." So that'll be fun as I learn and grow is
It'll
how to be a
come.
little bit more upbeat. So just gotta
It'll
get the
come.
reps in. We talk about that all the time on X, and I love getting into the motivational side of X a little bit. That's kind of
Yeah.
one of my niches. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it's easier to think about it if this or it seems like you may have. I know I have. It's easier to try to pre-plan and say what if and there's a lion outside my house and I'm just going to stay in.
Yeah.
It's so much better. It's so much better to just put in the reps and try and for
Yeah.
many years and said no one will want to read this or no one will want to connect with me or no one will want to hear what I have to say and maybe the encouragement to anyone who's going to listen to this later is don't sell yourself short.
Yeah.
God created you for a purpose and
Mhm.
he's refining you. And one of the things I found, meeting you, meeting a lot of other creators on X is I think this platform, it is for creation and honing our voices and developing our missions, but there's a lot of great community to support each other and pump each other up. So like you said,
Yeah.
that motivational side I think is palpable but you can't do it if you don't put anything out. If you're just
Yeah.
sitting in the shadows and you're lurking, you can consume all that content, but it doesn't become real, or at least it didn't become for real for me until I actually started putting tweets out there and sharing things and getting comments and getting interaction. That stuff wasn't quite as real as actually being in the arena and being in the game. So
Yeah.
kudos
That's
to you. I mean, like you said, you're getting it out there, you're doing the interviews. I mean, that putting in the reps, and that's the hardest work of all, getting out of our heads and actually just showing up and shipping.
Yeah. My wife asked me if I was nervous for the first one yesterday, and I was like, "Not really," because this is just even if it looks a little stiff and it isn't really polished at first, it's a research project. So,
Yeah.
I'm getting the data
I
that
think
I
it's a great
need. Yeah, so
yeah, it's
it's
a great approach to learning. You're using opportunity to learn. I mean, it's not yeah, you're getting to ask questions to put something together. It's not necessarily a cold intro, or a gotcha interview. It's a literally ask some questions about your curiosities and you're finding guys. And I think the same. Like I said, this is what has resonated with me. It's like reading your stuff, reading your notes, etc. It's like, yeah, this is what this is great structure for a lot of things I've already am doing and believe in.
yeah.
So, yeah, my
Thank you.
encouragement to you is keep showing up and
Yeah.
I'll get well before tomorrow church because that's
Yep.
not necessarily exciting to
Yeah,
have to do that when
exactly.
you're not sick or when you're sick. Yeah,
Yep, but you still show up anyway, even when you're sick. That's the rule. So,
right. Yeah, you got to.
yep. Alright, so yeah, the last research question, we talked about the monolithic man thesis, how it fits into your life and how you're validating the idea is a good one to pursue. The mechanisms, you gave us some great tools on how to avoid that fracture where your family suffers because of your pursuit of success. And the last question is the busy seasons of life, and seasons come in all kinds of forms. It could be a layoff, it could be having a new kid, so 9 months of pregnancy and then 18 years of a life. That's a big season, but then there's small seasons where I was in the Air Force Reserve for 17 years, so I'd have to go off and do a trip every year, and that was a season where for 2 weeks, I'm just gone. I'm not around. So this idea of busy seasons, making sure that your family knows when it's gonna end, when they can get you back, that kind of defined exit, even if it's you can't time box it and say only 2 weeks like with the layoff, but you're saying, "Hey, once we hit this condition, we're returning to the standards." Just how does that idea fit into your life?
Yeah, I think it's quite sound. I think it's sound for the reason of giving your family the right expectations, but I think it's also sound to give yourself the right expectations. It's easy for us to lie to ourselves and say it's only a season whenever really we have uncontrolled or unchecked ambition and we'll just grind. And that's my tendency, for better or worse. I've
Same.
inherited my father's work ethic and my grandfather's work ethic, which is grind and grind and grind some more. And when you're done grinding, actually, you got more grinding to do.
Yeah.
So my systems, my rules, if you will, around margin are not because I grew up being an expert at it, and it's certainly not because I'm natural at it. It's more as an ambition break, or at least a ambition guardrail to know that my tendency is just to go and go and go. I think setting the date with our family, family is part of our best accountability. We can manufacture a lot of things for ourselves. We can make ourselves a lot of promises and not hold ourselves accountable. But really, I think your family, especially as a man, your family is the one that is the mirror to your action. And not only them saying it and say, hey, you said this was going to be over and now you need to be here. But I think if we're paying attention, we see it in their behaviors, their reactions, and their actions. We start to see, wait, why are they acting that way? Or why are they being short? And then you trace it back to yourself and say, well, because I'm showing up as grumpy dad. We set the tone in our home
Yep.
and we put the, if well, you drop the rock in the pond and then the ripples are our family. And when it ripples out and we see what we don't want, it's because of our either lack of leadership or unintentional consequences of what we thought ambition looked like and having unbalanced ambition.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, I think that, we have a responsibility to our families. It's not, and I need to qualify this earlier in these interviews. I need to add a note for this. Is that I'm not manosphere, I'm not red pill. None of this is
Yeah.
anything like that. This is a I'm it's not a Christian framework. It is a framework that works within Christianity just
Sure.
because a big part of my goal is to reach people who may, they don't have the same faith. So I want to make sure we can speak to them too and to their lives too. But
Sure.
I am a Christian, so it very heavily influences my work. But
Sure. Of course.
yeah, I just that's a thing I always want to qualify. But absolutely, the family leadership piece. We were talking with Jason yesterday. He said something that was so cool is that he models what he wants from his home, and he invites. He said he gives the
Mm.
invitation to his
Yeah.
wife, and there's a firm leadership piece to it, but there's also that loving. I'm modeling and I'm inviting you into this life that we're sharing together.
Yeah, that's really good. And kind of on that same theme, we'll, whether it's leadership at work or leadership at home, and like you said, informed by our Christian worldview, but principles that exist outside of that. We often, in a leadership role, we often don't communicate and just expect that people are going to catch everything we want them to catch. But unfortunately, or fortunately maybe, that doesn't happen. There's friction and noise in between communication. There's environmental factors, there's things that are going on in their brains versus your brain, etc. But realistically, I think the reason we were designed that way, again, from a Christian perspective, I think God has created this way. The reason we were designed that way, I think, is to be connected in communication. We see it as a bug, thinking software, we see it as a bug to say, oh no, I can't just telepathically put my thoughts out there and just get them absorbed. I say it's a feature. We're supposed to be drawn together in community. We're supposed to be drawn together to love people. One of the things that I joke about at work is, it's easy to say that the hardest part about work is people, but we have found that people are the only way to get work done, but we must invest in people. So that even with the rise of artificial intelligence, and I won't go too far into this because it's not really part of the thesis, but um, I think even more, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence, we have to figure out how to be strong communicators with each other as we
Yeah,
use digital tools to accelerate our work and accelerate our ambition. We still have to be able to communicate person to person. And as leaders, again, home and work, we have to be able to be aware of enough to leverage artificial intelligence, but not let it replace our humanity.
yeah, that's huge. Yeah, we had a fun exchange here on X about being an AI slop operator. There's a lot of it out there. So
Right.
we're dads first
Go
of all, so
on.
you're always gonna get that dad joke part of it, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of it out there. I know I'm getting nerdy here on the AI and social media stuff, but I've noticed a lot less of it with the changes they made yesterday. Did you see that?
Yeah.
When
Yeah. I
they
think
banned that app that was incentivizing people with some kind of cryptocurrency to post. So I've noticed
right.
like half of the AI slop I normally see is not in the comments. So hey, maybe that's some opportunity for us genuine commenters.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's the kind of thing that again it's gonna ebb and flow. I think there's gonna be more desire for genuine human connection.
Yeah.
Again, but to me, AI is a lever. It's something that helps us get things out there more quickly.
Yeah.
It's something that can give us some ideas and some advice, but it is not in the driver's seat, nor should it ever be. It's fantastic time to be alive.
I agree.
We've got all these things available to us. I think, we talk about creators and raising our voices online. I think this is probably the best time to be looking at how people can be sharing their stories, their dreams, and their ambitions because the ability to scale up what you're doing and figure things out quickly and get activation, like we're living in somewhat of an I think the only other time that we've seen this in human history is or in our history is the internet revolution.
Yeah.
This is like sitting around in 95, 96, saying, I've got a website and I kind of know what I'm doing with it. It's a fantastic
Pretty good.
time. You can look at it and say it's the worst thing and it's a risk, or you can look at it and say this is an opportunity for us and from a dad perspective, I mean, again, I mentioned I've got a teenager and a preteen, being out in the forefront so I can educate them and say, how can
Mhm.
you use the tool? How do we not outsource our thinking to AI? How do we also not be fearful of it? Because it is, I think in my kids as become adults, this will be stuff that they're managing or partnering with AI agents, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that will be their paradigm as they enter the workforce. And so, how do I make sure that they know how to handle the tools without losing their faith or losing their humanity? I think is a good challenge, and it's exciting.
Exciting and scary for sure. I love it. I love what you said. It's a good time to be alive. Very cool. All right, Chris. Just in closing, I want to say that the monolithic man that isn't saying ambition's the enemy, but uncontrolled ambition that allows your family to pay the price of our success or our pursuit of success is really is really what we're trying to avoid. And the difference between the two isn't that we are bad in character. The difference is you just put in a structure, and that's how you can avoid that uncontrolled ambition. So I really appreciate you jumping in for the conversation today, being willing to talk honestly and openly about your life, the cost of what it means to be a man. We do live differently than a lot of men in the world, where we live for something greater than ourselves. And I think that it's great for us to do this and grow together.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the journey and obviously the success of what you're doing and on your thought about ambition. I agree. It's uncontrolled ambition. That's a good way of looking at that. If we leave it uncontrolled, it can destroy us. But like using a fire, a fire
Mm,
can destroy an entire house or it can keep your family warm. And
yeah,
so
it's a great
how do
example.
you harness it and bring it in to use for something that can be used for good? And I agree with your premise that ambition is something that we're given naturally, and how we use it and how we harness it is the key.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Thank you, sir. It's great talking to you. I'll be in
Yeah,
touch
likewise.
and I'll see you on X.
Okay, sounds great. I hope you
All right.
feel better.
Thank you.
All right, see ya.